All right, if you're a producer working in Europe, you know that securing Eurimages funding can absolutely make or break your project. But here's the thing, the rules are always evolving, and for 2026, some really significant updates are coming to the co-production support regulations. Look, staying on top of these changes isn't just a good idea, it's absolutely essential for your project's survival. So think of this as your personal strategic briefing to get ahead of what's coming. We are going straight to the source here, working directly from the official Eurimages bulletin. We're going to zero in on the key regulatory changes that are going to have a direct impact on your applications, your contracts, and your financing from 2026 on. This is your essential guide to getting it right.
So here's our roadmap. We're going to tackle 4 main changes. First, how co-production status is recognized. Second, a big restructuring of the support allocation rules. Third, a really critical clarification on bilateral co-productions. And finally, a small but important update to your deliverables checklist. Let's dive in.
Okay, our first stop is a change that honestly weaves its way through the entire set of regulations. It's all about making sure there's consistency in how your project's official co-production status is documented and talked about. The big word here is harmonization. Basically, Eurimages is standardizing the language for all the official documents that prove your film is a co-production. Now, I know, that might sound like a minor bit of admin, but trust me, its impact is huge. This is all about avoiding confusion and legal headaches down the road.
And just look at this. This shows you exactly how wide-ranging this change really is. Look at all those articles that got an update. This isn't just some small fix, it's a systemic change. The whole point is to bring clarity to every single step, from the moment you apply all the way to getting that final payment.
So, what are we actually talking about here? Well, these provisional and final recognition documents are the official papers from your national film body that say, yes, this is a legitimate co-production. The provisional one is what you need to sign your support agreement with Eurimages, and that final one is the key to unlocking your second payment. By making the language the same everywhere, Eurimages is just taking any guesswork out of the equation, which means a much smoother process for you.
Okay, let's get into our second major change. This one is all about the rules for what they call disproportionate allocation of support. Now, the goal here wasn't really to change the rules themselves, it was to make them way clearer. And this is an area you absolutely have to understand for your financial planning.
You can see the shift right away on this slide. Before, all the rules for this were crammed into one single, really dense article. It was confusing. Now they've been broken up and spread across 4 different articles. This change comes directly from feedback from producers like you. The whole idea is to make it easier to read, easier to understand, and to prevent arguments between co-producers later on.
Now, here's the critical detail. Hidden inside this restructuring is a really important addition. There's a specific scenario that used to be just an unwritten rule, something based on long-standing Eurimages practice, that has now been officially written into the regulations. Pay close attention to this clause. It's Article 4.3.4, second bullet point. They've turned informal practice into binding law, which is a huge deal for removing risk from your financial strategy.
I'm going to be blunt here. I want you to literally pause this explainer and go bookmark this section in the new regulations. You have to have a deep understanding of how support can be moved around between co-producers. It is absolutely fundamental to your financial strategy and to your co-production agreement. Seriously, this is required reading.
All right, this third update, it's just a perfect example of how one tiny 3-letter word can have massive legal consequences. This is about the eligibility rules for certain bilateral co-productions. Specifically, the ones where one partner has a really high majority share. Here's condition number 1. If you're doing a bilateral co-production where the main partner has up to 90% of the financing, the total budget for that film must be more than 5 million euros. That's the first hurdle you have to clear. And here it is, the single most important word in this whole update. It's not or, it is and. This is not a choice. This means the next thing isn't an alternative, it is another mandatory requirement. The second condition is that your co-production has to follow an existing bilateral treaty between the 2 countries involved. This has always been a rule, but the way it was written before, well, its connection to the budget number was sometimes misinterpreted. So let's be absolutely crystal clear. Eurimages added the word "and" on purpose. They did it to remove every last shred of doubt. Your project has to meet both of these conditions. The budget has to be over 5 million euros, and the structure has to follow a bilateral treaty. They are cumulative. There are no exceptions. This is exactly the kind of detail you need to go over with your legal team.
And finally, we've got a really practical update. This is a straightforward but super important change to the list of documents you have to give Eurimages at a really critical moment.
As you can see, there's a new item on your to-do list. From now on, in order to sign your support agreement and to request your first payment, you are now required to submit the project's production schedule. This just lets Eurimages see your timeline clearly before they commit and release any funds. So make sure you have that document polished and ready to go.
So there you have it. From harmonized language and clearer rules to that crucial little word and a new item on your checklist, these are the changes you need to have down cold. They affect every single part of your project, your financing, your legal docs, your day-to-day admin. The real question isn't just whether you understand these changes. It's, is your production plan from top to bottom truly ready for 2026?